To talk more about the opportunities in this segment, today we have Mr. Kanwaljeet, Jawa, MD and CEO, Daikin India. We have Mr. Ajay Shetty, Managing Partner, ASA Associates. And we have Mr. Manabu Yamazaki, President and CEO, Canon India Private Limited. To start with, may I please request Mr. Ajay Shetty, Managing Partner, ASA Associates, to make a small presentation to us.
So, I've been told to make this presentation in about 10 minutes time, and I took about 4 hours to make it at one point of time. So I'm going to enjoy trying to rush it through very fast. But that's what speakers are supposed to do sometimes, specifically when you're at the tail end of things. If you could just move to the next slide, please. And to the next, please. So I think when you talk about consumption and consumer markets, I think the most interesting, I don't want to get into that India rhetoric, GDP is going this way or that way. We'll stay away from that. Let's talk about India as a market. India as a market right now is part of Asia, and this is a Brookings study which says that the middle class is moving towards east. And this is the old study, it's not a new study. Next slide, please. If you could move to the next one, please. Yeah. And when the middle class is moving, so does the spending. And it is predicted that 57% of the spending will happen in Asia. China will be the #1 spender, but it's going to be India #2 spender. And that is the thing we must all talk about. And if I give you a little more numbers, sorry I have to rush through this one. Next one, please. So I'm just going to leave this slide. I'm not going to do the boring stuff of reading it out to you. But if you read this slide, you will observe that much of the interesting things are already happening. Smartphone markets gone, retail segments going up, textile markets growing up. Of course, air conditioners are selling very well, cameras are selling very well, photocopiers are selling very well. So everybody who's on the panel and around this room, they are all selling very well. And if there's any proof which is required that India is consuming at a fast pace, which country do you have in the world today, leaving out those less fortunate to have problems of geopolitical kinds, where you have to wait to buy a car, whether it's a base car of a Honda City model or it's a luxury car of a Mercedes side, it's only India. So there is a consumption pattern which is happening. Next slide, please. And this is the interesting slide. This is another old slide, but it's also shown its way up. You see you should look at the building on the right side, the one which has got the lighter blue color growing. Now, what earlier used to happen, we Indians used to get a salary package, or we used to earn our living, in which our discretionary spendings were much more controlled. It was basic needs which we were spending on. Now, you see what has happened. Our pocket size has dramatically gone up. And these are not studies done by me. I just picked up from all intelligent people and come and started speaking to you. So this is a very clear slide of what India's consumption patterns are going to be. For this reason, because I have been involved with Japan for over 32 years and I have visited Japan innumerable times. I can tell you, I'm asked this question many times by Japanese also, is India an interesting market? If it's not interesting now, I don't know when it will be interesting for anybody. I think it's a great time to be in India. Next slide, please. You can go ahead. Next one, please. And this, just to give you a little statistics out here, I'm going to be jumping these slides very fast, but this is Japan's position on foreign direct investments. And a country like India loves FDI. Any country which is sensible loves FDI and not portfolio investments and loans, because then you get into traps, debt traps and other issues. Fortunately, Japan has always been supporting. I've seen Japan be on 5, 4, 32 years, gives you a lot of perspective. Next slide, please. This gives you a sector-wise breakup. Next one, please. And these are the trading equations with the world. The only interesting thing would be that you'll see Switzerland, where we import. So how many chocolates can we eat and how many watches can we buy? But that's the gold India buys from Switzerland. Next one, please. These are the geopolitical changes which are taking place, and I understand there's another session going to be happening, so I'm not going to get into that session, but I can tell you from a Japanese point of view and an Indian point of view, this is a perfect combination. Japan is an aging population, and the children are a little lesser. Their products, there's a market out here which consumes 80% of what it produces. It's an ideal situation for Japan. And then we can do the next step together of going to Africa and building up that market. I mean, there's already a big Chinese base out there, but we could do something out there together. Next one, please. This is a little bit about my views on the government's plans and all positive. If somebody from the government is here, they don't have to get rackled with me. Next one, please. This is the one I'll take up. Next one, please. So this is the Japan's equation with India. This trading-wise, it's nothing to be really talked about. We are importing far more than we are exporting, which is normally what we do with many places. Next one, please. And these are the major sectors. Automobile still rules. Other sectors are picking up. Chemicals, we have a lot of requests on M&As, mergers and acquisitions, and EV space coming through. But Japanese companies looking towards India in a big way, leaving out the large giants, Mitsui, Sumitomo, Mitsubishi's, Sojei, Sitochu's. We have already seen them being out here. They are already big presence. What India needs is the SME segment, the heart of the Japanese market, the SME segment. That's what we need, and that's what I think is the missing piece. Just to give you a comparative, there are about 35,000 Japanese companies sitting in China. And to that, if you compare India's 1,400 numbers odd, you will understand that there's a huge potential for both of us. Next one, please. This gives you a breakdown of where the Japanese companies are located. Later on, I'll put the slides out and you can use it. Next one, please. And these are some of the things which we have been doing together with Japan, and there are good movements. I can put it in a nutshell. Politically, geopolitically, market-wise, India and Japan have been doing rather well for the last 10, 15 years. I've been looking in this market. Next one, please. And what lies ahead, there's a huge commitments made on both sides. I don't know about the commitments because I have heard these commitments before also. There was a commitment that there will be 4,500 Japanese companies in India by a particular year. Nothing really much happened, but you can't put that on political leaders. Businessman decides what he feels is the best market. And one must understand that there's a potential huge market for Japan in Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, and we have to make ourselves attractive for them to come. Consumption is the main factor. Next one, please. Next one, please. And these are some of the opportunity sectors which I believe are going to go very hot: retail, textile, food processing. These are the sectors which are going to go hot, and therefore this is a good discussion because these are the sectors which in the next 5 years are going to be very, very hot, all sitting on the base of logistics. Next one, please. And last slide out here, and this I hope I have not done too badly on the time, Arun. I'm trying to keep pace. I think one of the things Japanese market has to understand that India is not, it's like a United States of India. You can't say that coming to India, I'm going to sell my products. What product might sell down south may actually just go down under in north and vice versa. So you have to understand what your product is and where to hit it out. Supply chain, now this is the strangest problem in the world. I mean, it's a great problem to have, but it's the strangest problem. The world over, there's a problem of demand and supply is well managed. We have a huge demand and we have a supply problem. So it's an opportunity for logistics companies. But that is where the problem sits if you want to understand the Indian problem. I will just pick up one more, the Indian talent. Because rest I can leave it to you to read, but as a good chartered accountant, I'll avoid the last one, which is about regulatory norms. But I will just touch one. One of the things about Japanese companies, which I used to 20 years back, always find very strange, that they would keep on bringing expats from outside, very expensive expats. And their profitability would get affected out here. And then I observed, and since the comparative was what China and Korea have done, I observed that the Koreans and the Chinese, specifically the Koreans, Chinese were very limited at that time. They would bring in local talent, groom them up and let them run the field. That, I think, started changing, and I'm glad to see, Daikin was amongst the first. I was just having a word with Kanwal that they were amongst the first, but now you see a spate of it. Mitsui's done it, Hitachi's done it, the large giants, everybody is doing it. So I think it's a phenomenal moment, and this, I think, is one of the key successes which is going to change the pattern for Japanese investments into India and making them very successful in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sethi. That was, quite crisp and comprehensive as well. Uh, Maybe we could start this discussion taking up one particular point that Mr. Sethi had highlighted, and that is, as far as the trade is concerned, it is sort of still skewed now so much in favor of Japan. We do import much, much more from Japan than we export. In fact, today morning when the External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, spoke to us, he also mentioned this fact that there's a lot happening from Japan to India, but not vice versa. Maybe that's one point, before we get into the durables aspect of it, I would love to take to Mr. Jawa first. When it comes to, the potential business relations between these two countries, what are the areas where India can do much more, especially, for instance, in your consumer durables industry itself, where you can sort of make those products which really fit the quality, that a country like Japan would be looking for? What are the areas we can improve upon?
Good evening, everyone. I think before I start, I have to thank Ajay for doing my work also. He has said a lot about and set the tone very well. So thank you. And thank you for inviting me. I must say that, first, that this is the right time. Our Prime Minister keeps saying that yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai. You couldn't have been at a better place or better time than this. I would also like to talk about Daikin a little bit. It's a $27 billion company, and it was $6 billion, in 2006. One of the things they probably thought that, what we are talking today, the right time, they came first in India. And they said that when they have to become number one, in 2010, they decided to put up a factory here. They made investment in technology, they made investment in skilling, they made investment on research and development. And they said that if they have to go to the word number one, and I think in a change scenario post-COVID, it is very, very clear that, now we are all talking about China plus one. And very soon I can tell you, Ajayji, that there will be many companies shifting from China to India, primarily because everyone has understood what has happened in COVID. So already the discussions are going on at a very advanced stage, and in Indo-Japan summit also, I think now this is a very good initiative of India today. I must say that, that China plus one model is basically conceived now and also being executed everyone in Japan. Since I sit on their board, I'm aware of what the CEO's thinking has been. And I think there is a big antipathy against China. And particularly in, they have seen that, okay, China, Korea, I think India has skill, India has scale, and India also is 9 years ahead on sustainability. So once you have the innovation, once you have the few things which we have to do is that, probably in the morning also I was hearing the mindset change. I think also one of the things that, the Japanese are very, very strong DNA on quality, on innovation, on cost, whereas, I have also worked with American company for 14 years, and I've seen the complete change. The Japanese work on cost all the time. They're very passionately customer focused, they're cost conscious. At the same time, they want the product which is, the highest on innovation. 3 days back only, we have been awarded by the President of India for highest energy efficiency. So I think they not only look at the profitability, as Mr. Bhargav was telling, that what is long-term strategy of doing business. And I think in 12 years, we have grown 16 times in India with the affordable premium products. And we have beaten Koreans, we have also beaten some of the Chinese. And I think the fundamentals are that because they invested in core technology, they invested in also skilling with a large development center, etc. They not only build the selling capabilities and also build the manufacturing capabilities. I think what they do is they have people-centered management, and they build factories or job factories they create. So this time, what Government of India also has taken few steps like PLI, Atmanirbhar Bharat, or even understanding the strengths of what India has. What they should be doing probably, maybe more karaoke centers, more good hospitality centers for them, or more golf clubs, etc., etc. I think they add a lot of value when few of them comes. Japanese DNA with Indian style of execution, I think can rule the world very well. Thank you.
Okay, that is great. I would love to bring in Mr. Yamazaki into this picture right now. I mean, Canon has a presence in India for several number of years. What is it that makes the Indian market attractive for you at this point? And what is the? I mean, this is a highly disruptive area. When we talk about consumer goods. So, what are the future innovations likely to be from your company into the Indian market?
Okay, thanks for inviting me for this, first of all. Frankly, I just came here last year, and it's been about a year and a half in this tenure. But our company has been in India for 25 years. This is the number 25 this year. We just marked it. So thanks for your support for many years.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you very much. It's a good question. Indian market has really transformed itself in the past, most recently, 10 years, I think. And in most recent 3 years, it even transformed itself further. In a sense that we've all embraced pandemic, and I think people's lifestyle had been subjected to certain confinement of a kind, during which people started realizing about the value of living, with which I think there's a new trend of consumer good desire came up. And interestingly, our products represented by likes of cameras, printers, consumer printers, or video equipments, things like that, have really picked up rapidly in its demand, especially in the past year, when the market has started coming back, towards which we're not able to sufficiently answer to the demand in the market. But this is a very welcome change that I see, and I feel very blessed to be here, as our products do not really feature a pricing, affordability as a specialty. Our products are on average in the same industry, rather on the upper end of the product pricing. Whereas we receive this overwhelming demands for them, which proves the point that overall, I think consumer mindset has changed as a result of COVID outbreak. People are confined to home. They needed to look for something else rather than traveling around. And maybe during which I think people realized that working away from office might be an option. And then when offices opened up, they started acting, but not extensively as before, like traveling abroad, going around. I think overall, people's pastime has changed into doing something valuable for a personal interest. That somehow drove our demand to really go over the top. So that was a very welcome change. As I had been in charge of product operations before in Asia, during which time India always somehow featured an entry-level product with volume. So we had to drive these products with absolute, probably most affordable price tag. Whereas that is not the king of the market share anymore. It is more about having the variety of product portfolio that really fits the different varying demands coming from different price band, different walks of life today, per se. And I think the interesting statistics that I see is the urbanization speed has picked up so fast. Prior to this posting, I was based in Shanghai for about 6 years, and I witnessed very fast growth in consumer market segment as well. Likewise in India, I think especially after the COVID and during this time, I think the urbanization speed is picking up. The difference between China and India is that here your urban population only accounts for about 30% of the entire population, whereas China is the other way around. It's 70%. So, but at the same time, the statistics says in about coming 5 years or so, your urban population will catch up to the level of about 45% against the backdrop. That really proves the point about speeding middle income, I guess middle or upper range income level households, which further drives the opportunities for us to introduce something more important for our Indian market.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Mr. Sethi, you also talked about the potential for manufacturing here. I mean, just as there is a huge demand for consumer durables, a growing demand which you talked about, a whole lot of Japanese firms are looking at manufacturing locally, and they're investing heavily. How do you see the progress on that front? And what are the kind of, I mean, as a consultant, as a person who's observed this industry closely, where are the hiccups that you need to address when it comes to consumer companies going for manufacturing in India?
So I think as far as manufacturing bases are concerned, we have up north, of course, when the automotive sector came in and Mr. Bhargav was speaking, so Haryana came up the first one as the base for Japanese companies, and then it expanded down to Karnataka and then Tamil Nadu, and then we saw Gujarat coming up. So this is where the Japanese segments are largely based. And of course, there's the old plant, Mitsubishi Chemicals plants, which was up in West Bengal side. In my opinion, this is not even a drop in the ocean from the way the India is geared to handle these kind of manufacturing bases. Now, the other thing is, before I talk Japan, let me also mention that we have seen very quick uptake. Germany was already there. Germany has been a big player, specifically in Western India. But France has been catching up very fast. Before I talk Japan, I must give you a little perspective. France had remained silent because, I don't know, there's a French way of doing business that if you want something, you come to us, we are not coming to you. But they have changed over the last 10 years, and we are not talking Rafales and stuff. We are seeing a very strong movement from their side from the last 10 years. In IT side, advertisement side, chemical side, the whole works. From Japan's side, I think the amount of technology which sits with Japan and the need for that technology by Indians and the Indians' desire to, it's very funny, you should ask me this question, because one of the things which keeps coming up to us is, I want to get into new sphere. I'm a very large business house. I have got deep pockets. I can commit to a joint venture, but ideally I would like to do it with the Japanese. Now that always makes me think, because Japanese commitment is long term. Japan, just like Indians, are not looking for 5 or 10 years short thing, or like an American joint venture. If something goes wrong, they don't get upset. They will give you a second chance. There'll be ways to do things together. So I think that trust factor is what is the main thing which is going to build up. And I'll just link up your first question, which you had also asked about exports and imports. I think spending time on finding out what consumer products India will send to Japan is going to waste our time, personally speaking. Because, if you talk textiles, they got Uniqlo. I mean, Uniqlo is beating the life out of H&M and others in India. You pick up any product that's already there. So instead of trying to find a product to sell out there, we should ensure that the technology comes in, they mass produce out here, and then we together go to new markets. That will offset the balance, but indirectly. But I think that's a better bet. Thinking of an Indian product immediately to go to Japan will take some energy.
Yes, thanks. Mr. Jawa, manufacturing in India for the world, what are your views on that? What has your experience been personally?
I think historians are going to blame if we do not encash this opportunity. This is going to be the decade of manufacturing. Just to add to what states you have mentioned, now Nimrana also has become a Japanese zone. And recently I visited Sri City, which is about 70 kilometers from Chennai. And I saw Foxconn factory there, which is producing the largest number of mobile phones there. I mean, it is as good as Hyundai or as good as any Chinese big market if you see. And I think manufacturing capability of India today as I said that, Japan is losing population every year. I mean, they are going down. And India is going to become the most populous country. And I think the Japanese companies at the top have already realized that when the world is going through the turbulent water, you have recession in the US, you have 35 years lowest GDP in China, you have energy crisis in the UK, and you are seeing the opportunities here, the FDIs, the Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant Bharat or PLI scheme or various reforms which have taken place. I think India is the country now. And people have already started looking at the Shiri city also is becoming another Japanese zone where Daikin has taken a 75-acre land, and along with us, there are about 10 or 12 companies which have taken the advantage of PLI.
So it's an industrial park?
Yeah, it's an industrial park, which is, the plug-and-play facilities like you used to have earlier in Korea or in China or in Japan. So I think India is just ready to encash that, take the advantage of that. And also, it is being seen now, not only Make in India, I think we are going one step ahead. Primarily, again, because the cost of production, when you compare with Japan or with US, it is much lower. Even Europe, we have seen the cars now, automobile. I think automobile and mobile, what has happened now, it is going to be replicated in the consumer durables industry. That's how the consumer durable industry is going toward, whether it is DPIT or Invest India or Niti Aayog. I think we have to thank them for what they have done on not only labor reforms, also on economic reforms, also on various other things. And we are seeing the results. The GST collection is all-time high for the last 9 months. And with all this trouble which China has created, unfortunately, I think India is only the second engine of manufacturing for the time to come. But yes, we need to also look at the other areas. Right. When you particularly go with Japan, I think you need to think on many, many things which we have mentioned that, speed in deciding and speed in doing. Maybe sometime there is a difference of opinion, etc., etc. I think we have to go with our conviction. India has a lot of advantages as far as manufacturing base is concerned.
Thank you so much. And maybe a final word from Mr. Yamasaki, regarding manufacturing in India. Your plans, the progress so far.
Yes, you're aware of us. We do not really have any manufacturing base here. I don't really have any concrete information to share with you today. But as we really focus today on India as a market, and I think the production base itself in the industry per se has somewhat shifted from other locations today, as we find some advantages in PLI and other policies. Plus, we have this diplomatic relationship. This is a commemoration of 70 years. And most of this time, it has been quite peaceful, but quite quiet in a way. As I think industry leaders in the headquarters side has started probably shedding more light on the value of the Indian market per se, as a market, as a production site as well. And India somewhat positioned offset from Southeast Asian countries, which is rather closer and it's rather easier in access because of the time consumed in commuting. And we started realizing about the value, probably finally, in a larger group of community, that the value of India being placed in the middle of Eurasian continent has a strategic value in it. So from our company perspective, we have really such a broad range of products from consumer to industry products. It really depends on the type of products that you'd like to focus on at this point in time. Products such as copying machines or camera products, which had somewhat hit the maturity in the life cycle itself as a entire industry, we may have a higher challenge in justifying the cost of production itself. Whereas products such as medical products or surveillance products, which is somewhat our recent focus so much on, and some industry products such as semiconductor equipments, those are probably a proper focus for us in thinking the new strategies ahead in taking up this opportunity.
Okay, so we can expect some initiatives from Canon in manufacturing.
This is not my confirmation, to be honest. Yeah, I just picking it up.
Sure, I think, yeah, you have to.
I'm happy to announce that we are going to put up one of the biggest South Asia's factory in India. We already have 2 plants in Nimrana, and the 3rd plant which is coming up in 75-acre in Shri City, not only for the finished goods of air conditioners, but we are also trying to replicate what has happened in automobile industry for the ecosystem we are creating for the industry. You know, we are also coming up with the device factory. We also have AI IoT center and also the skill center there.
What's the capacity of the factory that you said?
2.5 million room air conditioners.
That is per annum.
Per annum, yeah. And we are trying to take this not only manufacturing base for India, but also for Middle East and Africa.
Wonderful. On that great note, we have come to the end of this particular session. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for enlightening us with your thoughts. A big round of applause to all the panelists present here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Could I request Yogendra Pratap to join us on stage, the editor of Auto Today, to share a token of appreciation with our guests.